Big Bang Theory, Season 1 Episode 3. Series 01 Episode 03 The Fuzzy Boots Corollary Scene, Sheldon and Leonard's apartment. Howard. All right, just a few more feet, and here we are, gentlemen, the gates of Beelzebub. Cultural, historical reference. Beelzebub is a variant of Beelzebub, a Philistine deity, and later, in some Abrahamic religions, a major demon, often associated with hell. Howard uses this to dramatically name a fictional place within their game, drawing on a well-known demonic reference to create atmosphere. Howard. Stay frosty, there's a horde of armed goblins on the other side of that gate guarding the sword of Azeroth. Idiom. Stay frosty, informal, means to remain alert and ready for action, often used in military or gaming contexts. Vocabulary. Horde. A large group of people, or, here, goblins, moving together, often in a disorganized way. Guarding. Protecting. Cultural, historical reference. Goblins are mischievous, grotesque, and often evil creatures common in fantasy literature and role-playing games. The Sword of Azeroth is a clear nod to Azeroth, the fictional world of the popular video game World of Warcraft, which is a significant cultural touchstone for nerd culture. Leonard. Warriors, unsheath your weapons, magic wielders raise your wands. Vocabulary. Unsheath. To draw a sword, knife, or other weapon from its sheath or scabbard. Wielders. Those who hold and use a weapon or tool. Expression. Leonard adopts the formal, epic language typical of fantasy role-playing games, highlighting their immersion in the game world. Sheldon. Lock and load. Idiom. Lock and load, informal, military origin, means to prepare a firearm for shooting by locking the bolt and loading ammunition. Sheldon uses this in a gaming context to express readiness for combat. Raj. Blowing the gates. Control, Shift, B. Oh, my God, so many goblins. Cultural, historical reference. Control, Shift, B refers to a keyboard shortcut commonly used in computer games to activate specific abilities or commands. Raj's quick, almost instinctive, recitation of the keys shows his familiarity with gaming mechanics. Howard. Don't just stand there, slash and move, slash and move. Expression. Howard gives rapid-fire instructions, typical of fast-paced video game combat, emphasizing quick actions and strategic movement. Leonard. That's all right, my tail's prehensile, I'll swat him off. Vocabulary. Prehensile. Biology, chiefly of an animal's limb or tail, capable of grasping. Swat. To hit something with a sharp blow, typically with a flat object or the hand. Expression. Leonard reveals a specific, somewhat unusual, characteristic of his in-game character, further immersing the audience in their fantastical game world. Raj. I've got him, Leonard. Tonight I spice my meat with goblin blood. Expression. Raj, despite his real-world shyness, becomes remarkably aggressive and boastful in the game, reflecting a common phenomenon where online anonymity frees individuals from social inhibitions. His dramatic statement is a common trope in fantasy narratives. Raj. Ooh, he's got me. Expression. Raj's simple exclamation indicates his in-game character has been defeated or captured. Howard. Sheldon, he's got Raj, use your stealth spell. Sheldon. Sheldon. Vocabulary. Stealth spell. Fantasy, gaming. A magical ability that allows a character to become invisible or move undetected. Expression. Howard urgently calls for Sheldon to use his specific in-game ability, highlighting the collaborative, or expected collaborative, nature of the game. Sheldon. There is no more Sheldon, I am the Swordmaster. Expression. Sheldon's dramatic declaration that he has adopted a new, powerful persona within the game, completely abandoning his teammates for personal gain. This reveals his individualistic and competitive nature, even in a cooperative game. Leonard. The bastard teleported. Vocabulary. Teleported, science fiction, fantasy, moved instantaneously over a distance. Bastard. Vulgar, a derogatory term for a person. Here, used in frustration towards Sheldon's betrayal. Expression. Leonard's frustrated and angry realization that Sheldon used a game mechanic to escape with the prize. leaving them to die. Raj, he's selling the Sword of Azeroth on eBay. Cultural, historical reference. eBay is a popular online auction and e-commerce website. Raj's immediate assumption that Sheldon would monetize the in-game item on eBay highlights a real-world practice among serious gamers, selling virtual items for real money, and Sheldon's mercenary tendencies. Sheldon, I'm a rogue night elf, don't you people read character descriptions? Vocabulary. Rogue night elf. Fantasy, gaming, a specific character class or archetype in many fantasy games, a knight who acts independently, often with questionable morals, and is of the elven race. Expression. Sheldon justifies his betrayal by appealing to his character's description, suggesting his actions are merely consistent with his chosen role, rather than personal betrayal. This is a classic Sheldon deflection. Sheldon. Wait, somebody just clicked. Buy it now. Cultural, historical reference. Buy it now is an eBay feature that allows a buyer to purchase an item immediately at a set price rather than bidding. Sheldon's immediate focus on the financial transaction underscores his motivations. Howard, I am the Swordmaster. Expression. Howard, having bought the sword, immediately claims Sheldon's newly adopted title, highlighting the fleeting nature of dominance and the competitive dynamic among them. Scene. The same, after the game. Sheldon. Woo, I'm all sweaty. Anybody want to log on to Second Life and go swimming? I just built a virtual pool. Idiom. Log on, informal, to gain access to a computer system or online platform. Cultural, historical reference. Second Life was a popular online virtual world, a precursor to modern metaverses, where users could create avatars, build virtual objects, and interact with others. Sheldon's desire to transition to a virtual pool highlights his preference for digital interaction over real-world activities. Leonard. No, I can't look at you or your avatar right now. Vocabulary. Avatar. Computing, gaming, a graphical image that represents a person in a video game, internet forum, etc. Expression. Leonard's extreme frustration with Sheldon's betrayal in the game extends to not wanting to see even his virtual representation. Sheldon. Don't forget the mail you took accidentally on purpose so you'd have an excuse to talk to her. Idiom, expression. Accidentally on purpose, informal, doing something deliberately but making it appear accidental. Sheldon exposes Leonard's thinly veiled attempt to initiate contact with Penny. Howard. Stealing snail mail, very old school, I like it. Vocabulary. Snail mail. Informal, mail delivered in the traditional physical way as opposed to electronic mail. Old school. Informal, referring to something traditional, classic, or belonging to an earlier era. Expression. Howard comments on the old school nature of Leonard's tactic, highlighting the generational shift towards digital communication while humorously approving of the classic. Romantic ploy. Doug. What's up, bro? Slang. What's up, bro? Informal, often masculine, a casual greeting, typically used between male friends or to establish a casual, familiar tone. Expression. Doug's greeting immediately signals his jock or frat boy archetype, further emphasizing the contrast with Leonard. Leonard. Not much, bro. Expression. Leonard awkwardly reciprocates the bro greeting, trying to fit in but clearly uncomfortable and out of his element. Leonard. Civil servants have a documented propensity to, snap. Vocabulary. Civil servants, government employees. Documented propensity. Formal, a proven or recorded tendency or inclination. Snap. Informal, to suddenly lose control or become angry. Expression. Leonard, feeling awkward, resorts to a generalized, slightly conspiratorial, and scientifically phrased warning about civil servants, highlighting his discomfort and tendency to intellectualize everyday interactions. Sheldon. Penny for your thoughts. Idiom. Penny for your thoughts, idiomatic, a common expression used to ask someone what they are thinking, especially if they look pensive or troubled. Sheldon's use is slightly ironic, given that he rarely cares about others. Emotions. Howard. Kissing, what kind of kissing? Cheeks, lips, chaste, French, vocabulary. Chaste. Formal, abstaining from sexual intercourse, pure. Here, meaning a simple, innocent kiss. French, kiss. A kiss involving the use of the tongue. Expression. Howard's detailed, almost clinical, interrogation about the nature of the kiss reveals his focus on romantic and sexual details, a running gag for his character. Sheldon. Please don't tell me that your hopeless infatuation is devolving into pointless jealousy. Vocabulary. Hopeless infatuation. An intense but unrealistic or unrequited love or admiration. Devolving into. Progressing or deteriorating into. Pointless jealousy. Envy that serves no purpose. Expression. Sheldon directly and clinically diagnoses Leonard's emotional state, using precise academic language to describe his infatuation and jealousy. Howard. Because he looked better than you? Expression. Howard's blunt and immediate question directly confronts Leonard's insecurity. Leonard. Yeah. He was kinda dreamy. Vocabulary. Dreamy. Informal, attractively pleasant or beautiful in a way that suggests a dream. Expression. Leonard surprisingly admits his attraction to Doug, acknowledging his own insecurities and the other man's attractiveness. Sheldon. Well, at least now you can retrieve the black box from the twisted smoldering wreckage that was once your fantasy of dating her, and analyze the data so that you don't crash into Geek Mountain again. Vocabulary. Expression. Black box. Aeronautics, a flight recorder in an aircraft that records flight data and cockpit conversations, used to investigate accidents. Twisted smoldering wreckage. Figurative, the remains of something destroyed, still burning slightly. Fantasy of dating her. Leonard's idealized vision of a relationship with Penny. Analyze the data. Scientific, figurative, to examine information methodically. Crash into Geek Mountain. Figurative. To fail spectacularly in a social or romantic pursuit, specifically due to being too nerdy or socially awkward. Expression. Sheldon delivers a brutally honest and highly metaphorical analysis of Leonard's romantic failure. He uses the extended metaphor of a plane crash, black box, wreckage, to describe the end of Leonard's fantasy, and then urges him to analyze the data to avoid future crashes on Geek Mountain, a place where socially awkward romantic attempts end in failure. This is a classic Sheldon insult disguised as helpful scientific advice. Howard. I disagree. Love is not a sprint, it's a marathon. A relentless pursuit that only ends when she falls into your arms or hits you with the pepper spray. Vocabulary. Sprint, a short, fast race. Marathon, a long-distance running race. Relentless pursuit, a determined and continuous effort to achieve something. Pepper spray, a chemical irritant used for self-defense, causing temporary blindness and respiratory irritation. Expression. Howard offers a more aggressive, persistent philosophy on love, framing it as a marathon of relentless pursuit. His humorous and dark addition about pepper spray suggests a boundary, or consequence, to such relentless pursuit. Leonard. Well, I'm done with Penny. I'm going to be more realistic and go after someone my own speed. Expression. Someone my own speed, idiomatic, someone who is similar in terms of intelligence, social skills, or attractiveness. Leonard, feeling rejected, decides to lower his expectations. Sheldon. The dietitian at the cafeteria. With the limp and the lazy eye? Vocabulary. Dietitian. A person who is an expert on diet and nutrition. Limp. A difficulty in walking. Lazy eye. Medical. A condition, amblyopia, where one eye fails to achieve normal visual acuity. Expression. Sheldon immediately provides a blunt, unflattering, and overly detailed description of Olivia Geiger's physical imperfections, highlighting his lack of filter and focus on observable, and in this case, negative, traits. Sheldon. Well, I don't think you have a shot there. I have noticed that Leslie Winkle recently started shaving her legs. Now, given that winter is coming, one can only assume that she is signaling sexual availability. Idiom. Don't have a shot, informal, to have no chance of success. Cultural, historical reference. Winter is coming, is a famous phrase from the Popular fantasy series Game of Thrones, often used to signify an impending difficult or significant period. Sheldon humorously and inappropriately misapplies this phrase to signal Leslie's supposed sexual availability, based on his literal and analytical, and highly speculative, interpretation of a social cue, shaving legs. This shows his complete misunderstanding of subtle social signals and his tendency to overanalyze. Howard. There are pitfalls, trust me, I know. When it comes to sexual harassment law, I'm a bit of a self-taught expert. Vocabulary. Pitfalls. Hidden or unsuspected dangers. Or difficulties. Sexual harassment law. Legal regulations concerning unwanted sexual advances or behavior that creates a hostile work environment. Self-taught expert. Someone who has gained extensive knowledge or skill through their own study rather than formal training. Expression. Howard implies his past experiences with sexual harassment, likely due to his inappropriate behavior, have forced him to become knowledgeable in the law, a self-deprecating but also slightly disturbing admission. Howard. Oh, then you're probably okay. Expression. Howard's response is an ironic and cynical comment, implying that Leonard's basic intention, just dinner, is the bare minimum for avoiding legal trouble, highlighting Howard's skewed understanding of acceptable social interactions. Scene. Howard and Leslie's lab. Leonard. Leslie, I would like to propose an experiment. Expression. Leonard frames his request for a date as a scientific experiment, demonstrating his comfort with scientific language and his awkwardness with direct romantic overtures. Leslie. Goggles, Leonard. Cultural, historical reference. Goggles are protective eyewear. Leslie's immediate command to wear goggles highlights the hazardous nature of their lab work and her practical, safety-conscious approach, contrasting with Leonard's romantic distraction. Leslie. Hang on. I'm trying to see how long it takes a 500 kilowatt oxygen iodine laser to heat up my cup o' noodles. Vocabulary, expression. 500 kilowatt oxygen iodine laser. Physics, engineering, a very powerful type of chemical laser. Cup o' noodles. A brand of instant ramen noodles, typically prepared by adding hot water. Expression. Leslie's highly specific, powerful scientific equipment being used for a trivial, mundane task, heating noodles, is a classic example of nerd humor, showcasing their casual use of advanced technology for everyday convenience. Leonard. Peef, I've done it, about 2 seconds, 2.6 for minestrone. Anyway, I was thinking more of a biosocial exploration with a neurochemical overlay. Vocabulary. Minestrone, a thick Italian soup. Biosocial exploration with a neurochemical overlay. Formal, scientific, Leonard's overly academic and jargon-filled way of describing a date. Biosocial refers to biological and social aspects, and neurochemical overlay refers to the brain chemistry involved, like hormones and neurotransmitters. Expression. Leonard casually demonstrates his own prior experimentation with the laser and then presents his date idea in the most convoluted, scientific terms possible, again highlighting his social awkwardness. Leonard. I was going to characterize it as the modification of our colleague, friendship paradigm, with the addition of a date-like component. But we don't need to quibble over terminology. Vocabulary. Characterize. To describe the distinctive nature or features of. Modification. A change or alteration. Colleague, friendship paradigm. Formal, academic, a conceptual framework describing their current relationship as colleagues and friends. Date-like component. A feature that resembles a date. Quibble over terminology. To argue or raise trivial objections about the words used. Expression. Leonard's highly formal and academic phrasing for asking someone out on a date is extremely awkward but characteristic. He attempts to avoid quibbling while simultaneously using overly complex language. Leslie. And would you agree that the primary way we would evaluate either the success or failure of the date would be based on the biochemical reaction during the goodnight kiss? Vocabulary. Evaluate. To assess or appraise. Biochemical reaction. Chemical processes occurring within living organisms. Expression. Leslie, also a scientist, immediately understands and embraces Leonard's scientific framing of the Date, pushing it further by proposing a precise, measurable metric for success, the biochemical reaction, during a kiss. This shows her similar analytical mindset. Leonard, heart rate, pheromones, etc., yes. Vocabulary. Heart rate, the rate at which the heart beats. Pheromones, biology, chemical substances produced and released into the environment by an animal, especially a mammal or insect, affecting the behavior or physiology of others of its species. Expression. Leonard immediately confirms his understanding of the specific scientific data points they would collect, demonstrating their shared scientific language. Leslie. Well, why don't we just stipulate that the date goes well and move to the key variable. Vocabulary. Stipulate. Formal, legal, demand or specify a requirement, typically as part of an agreement. Here, to agree on a premise. Key variable. Scientific, the crucial factor or element being tested or observed in an experiment. Expression. Leslie takes control, efficiently cutting to the chase by proposing they skip the date and go directly to the experiment, the kiss, treating it purely as a scientific test. Leonard, can you define the parameters of the kiss? Vocabulary. Parameters. Technical, scientific, a set of limits or conditions that control the way something can be done. Expression. Leonard, ever the scientist, asks for the precise parameters, conditions or rules of the kiss, ensuring the experiment is well defined. Leslie. Closed mouth but romantic. Mint. Expression. Leslie's precise and practical instructions for the kiss, including the suggestion of a breath mint, further highlights their clinical approach to a romantic moment. Leslie. On the plus side, it was a good kiss, reasonable technique, no extraneous spittle. On the other hand, no arousal. Vocabulary. Extraneous. Irrelevant or unrelated to the subject being dealt with. Spittle. Saliva, especially that which is spat from the mouth. Arousal. Physiology, psychology, the state of being awoken or stimulated. Here, sexual arousal. Expression. Leslie delivers a shockingly blunt and clinical assessment of the kiss, using scientific terminology, e.g., technique, extraneous spittle, arousal, to evaluate a personal experience, highlighting her lack of social filter and scientific focus. Leonard. None? Expression. Leonard's simple, crestfallen question reveals his disappointment and disbelief at the complete lack of romantic success. Leonard. Ah, well, thank you for your time. Expression. Leonard reverts to formal, polite dismissal, mimicking a professional interaction rather than a failed romantic one. Leslie. Thank you. Expression. Leslie's equally formal and professional response, reinforcing the idea that this was merely an experiment. Leonard. None at all? Expression. Leonard's lingering, desperate question, showing his continued disbelief and hope for any positive outcome, even after the experiment is over. Scene. Sheldon and Leonard's flat. Sheldon. That depends. When I learn that I'm a robot, will I be able to handle it? Expression. Sheldon's characteristic way of answering a hypothetical question with another hypothetical, always prioritizing logic and consequence. Sheldon. Let me ask you this. When I learn that I'm a robot, would I be bound by Asimov's 3 laws of robotics? Cultural, historical reference. Isaac Asimov, 1920 to 1992, was a highly influential science fiction writer. His 3 laws of robotics are: a robot may not injure a human being or, through inaction, allow a human being to come to harm. A robot must obey the orders given to it by human beings, except where such orders would conflict with the first law. A robot must protect its own existence as long as such protection does not conflict with the first or second law. Expression. Sheldon, ever the sci-fi purist, immediately references a foundational concept in robot ethics, again demonstrating his deep knowledge of specific cultural lore. Howard. Have you ever harmed a human being, or through inaction allowed a human being to come to harm? Expression. Howard applies the first of Asimov's laws to Sheldon, testing his robot hypothesis. Howard. Have you ever harmed yourself, or allowed yourself to be harmed except in cases where a human being would have been endangered? Expression. Howard applies the third of Asimov's laws to Sheldon. Howard, I smell robot. Expression. Howard's humorous conclusion after applying the tests, implying Sheldon's adherence to the laws suggests he might actually be a robot. Leonard, oh, we tried kissing, but the Earth didn't move. I mean any more than the 383 miles that it was going to move anyway. Idiom. The Earth didn't move. Idiomatic. A common phrase implying a lack of passion, excitement, or significant emotional, physical impact during an intimate moment, often a kiss or sex. Expression. Leonard uses the idiom but immediately, and humorously, corrects it with a scientific detail about the Earth's actual motion, showcasing his analytical mind even in disappointment. Sheldon. Oh, I've seen that look before. This is just going to be 2 weeks of moping and tedious emo songs, and calling me to come down to pet stores to look at cats. I don't know if I can take it. Vocabulary. Moping. Being in a bad mood and feeling sorry for oneself. Tedious. Too long, slow, or dull, tiresome. Emo songs, cultural, music, a subgenre of rock music characterized by expressive, often confessional lyrics. The term, emo, also refers to a youth subculture associated with emotional sensitivity and sometimes melancholy. Expression. Sheldon, despite his social ineptitude, predicts Leonard's post-rejection behavior with startling accuracy and a lack of sympathy, describing it in negative terms. Moping, tedious emo songs, highlighting his impatience with others' emotional struggles. Raj, you could power down. Expression. Raj continues the Sheldon is a robot joke by suggesting he power down, turn off, a common computer or robot action, to escape Leonard's predicted emotional outburst. Howard. Well, as usual, Wolowitz has the solution. Expression. Howard playfully refers to himself in the third person, boasting about his supposed problem-solving abilities. Howard. I think Mrs. Tishman's got her eye on you. I've been there, you're in for a treat. Idiom. Got her eye on you, idiomatic, to be interested in someone romantically or as a potential partner. Expression. Howard, ever the ladies' man, in his own mind, identifies potential romantic interest from an older woman and suggests Leonard is in for a treat, implying a sexual experience. Scene. The flat, after the salsa class. Leonard, singing, You Don't Know Me, You Don't Wear My Chains? God, that's a good song. Cultural, historical reference. Leonard is singing lyrics in an emo style, often characterized by themes of angst, emotional pain, and feeling misunderstood. You don't wear my chains. This fulfills Sheldon's earlier prediction. Sheldon, if you're compiling a mix CD for a double suicide. Vocabulary. Compiling. Producing a collection or album, by assembling songs or other material from various sources. Mix CD. Cultural, music, a compilation of songs burned onto a CD, often created as a personalized gift. Double suicide. A suicide involving 2 people. Expression. Sheldon's dark and literal interpretation of Leonard's depressing emo song, suggesting it's suitable only for a morbid event, highlights his lack of social filter and morbid sense of humor. Sheldon. Oh, I hope that scratching post is for you. Vocabulary. Scratching post. A vertical post covered in rough material, used by cats to sharpen their claws. Expression. Sheldon, seeing pet supplies, hopes the scratching post is for Leonard, as a cat proxy, rather than an actual cat, showing his aversion to animals and his understanding of Leonard's emotional state. Leonard. I know what you're thinking, I've taken your asthma into account. There's a feline geneticist in San Diego who has developed the cutest little hypoallergenic calicos. Vocabulary. Asthma. A respiratory condition. Feline geneticist. A scientist who studies the genetics of cats. Hypoallergenic. Medical. Producing fewer allergic reactions. Calicos. Biology. Cats. A type of domestic cat with a tricolor coat. Typically white, orange, and black. Expression. Leonard has gone to extreme, scientific lengths, consulting a geneticist, finding hypoallergenic cats, to get a pet, showing his Intellectualized approach even to emotional needs, and his consideration for Sheldon's condition. Leonard. I've been thinking about names, I'm kind of torn between Einstein, Newton and Sergeant Fuzzy Boots. Cultural, historical reference. Einstein, Albert Einstein, famous physicist. Newton, Isaac Newton, famous physicist. Sergeant Fuzzy Boots. A silly, endearing, and childish name for a pet, contrasting sharply with the intellectual names. Expression. Leonard's choice of names showcases the duality of his personality. Intellectual giants versus a whimsical, almost childish, name. Sheldon. Leonard, do you really think you can satisfy your need for a relationship with a genetically altered cat? Expression. Sheldon, for once, cuts through Leonard's intellectualizations and directly addresses the underlying emotional need for a relationship, showing a rare moment of clarity. Regarding Leonard's true feelings. Sheldon. Okay, look, I think that you have as much of a chance of having a sexual relationship with Penny as the Hubble telescope does of discovering at the center of every black hole is a little man with a flashlight searching for a circuit breaker. Cultural, historical reference. Hubble telescope, a space telescope. Launched by NASA, famous for its images of distant galaxies. Black hole. Astrophysics. A region of space-time where gravity is so strong that nothing, not even light, can escape. Circuit breaker. An automatic switch that stops the flow of electric current in a circuit as a safety measure. Expression. Sheldon delivers another complex, highly metaphorical, and utterly brutal assessment of Leonard's chances with Penny. He uses an elaborate, absurd scientific analogy, Hubble finding a man in a black hole, to convey the absolute impossibility of Leonard's romantic success, again highlighting his scientific mindset and lack of tact. Sheldon. Nevertheless, I do feel obligated to point out to you that she did no reject you. You did not ask her out. Vocabulary. Obligated. Required as a matter of duty or custom. Expression. Sheldon, despite his previous harsh assessment, points out a crucial logical distinction. Leonard was not rejected because he never actually asked Penny out. This is a rare moment of helpful, albeit blunt, advice from Sheldon. Sheldon. No, now that was not my point. My point was, don't buy a cat. Expression. Sheldon immediately regrets his logical intervention as it leads Leonard to a conclusion he did not intend, asking Penny out, and which he fears, getting a cat. Sheldon. Oh, goody, we're getting a cat. Expression. Sheldon's resigned and slightly sarcastic comment, anticipating the inevitable negative outcome, for him, of Leonard's decision. Scene. The hallway. Leonard. There is an inherent ambiguity in the word dinner. Technically, it refers to the largest meal of the day whenever it is consumed, so, to clarify here, by dinner I mean supper. Vocabulary. Inherent ambiguity. Formal, uncertainty, or doubt that is naturally part of something. Technically, according to the facts or exact meaning of something. Consumed. Eaten or drunk. Clarify. To make clear or intelligible. Expression. Leonard, panicking under pressure, launches into a pedantic, overly detailed explanation of the word dinner, trying to appear composed but revealing his extreme anxiety. He even corrects himself with supper, only to revert, making it even more awkward. Leonard. They might all be there, or a subset of them might be there. Algebraically speaking, there are too many unknowns. For example, Sheldon had Quiznos for lunch. Sometimes he finds that filling, other times he doesn't. It's no fault of Quiznos, they have a varied menu. Vocabulary. Subset. Mathematics. A set of elements that are all contained within another set. Algebraically speaking. Using or referring to the principles of algebra, a branch of mathematics dealing with symbols and the rules for manipulating these symbols. Unknowns. Mathematics, quantities or values that are not known and need to be found. Quiznos. Likely a reference to Quiznos, a sandwich chain. Varied menu. A menu with many different food options. Expression. Leonard again over intellectualizes a simple social question. He uses mathematical terms, subset, algebraically speaking, unknowns, to describe the uncertainty of who will Attend dinner, even bringing in Sheldon's eating habits as a variable, showcasing his profound social awkwardness and reliance on academic frameworks. Leonard. 'Cause it's not carved in stone. Idiom. Carved in stone, idiomatic, fixed or unchangeable, unalterable. Leonard uses this to indicate flexibility with the time. Leonard. I'll get my chisel. Vocabulary. Chisel. A long-bladed hand tool with a beveled cutting edge, used to carve or cut hard materials like stone. Expression. Leonard makes a literal joke based on pennies, not carved in stone. Comment, showing his awkward attempt at humor. Scene. Sheldon and Leonard's apartment. Sheldon. The dark crescent-shaped patterns under your arms conceal it nicely. Vocabulary. Crescent-shaped. Shaped like a segment of a ring, broad in the middle and tapering to points at the ends. Conceal. To hide. Expression. Sheldon provides a precise, visual description of Leonard's sweat stains, showing his meticulous observation skills and blunt honesty. Sheldon. Perfect, that gives you 2 hours and 15 minutes for that dense molecular cloud of Aramis to dissipate. Vocabulary. Dense molecular cloud. Astrophysics, figurative, a region of interstellar space where molecular hydrogen and other molecules are concentrated. Sheldon uses this scientific term metaphorically to describe the strong smell of Leonard's cologne. Aramis. A well-known brand of men's cologne, fragrance. Dissipate. To scatter or cause to disappear. Expression. Sheldon critiques Leonard's cologne in highly scientific terms, comparing it to an astrophysical phenomenon and precisely calculating the time needed for it to fade, highlighting his scientific, and critical, approach to even personal grooming. Sheldon. Not if you're a rugby team. Cultural, historical reference. Rugby team. Rugby is a contact sport, and players often sweat profusely. Sheldon implies that only an entire team's worth of individuals would need that much cologne, humorously emphasizing Leonard's overuse. Leonard. By the way, if it should ever come up, you didn't join us because you stuffed yourself with a chicken carbonara sub at Quiznos. Vocabulary. Stuffed yourself. Ate a very large amount of food. Chicken carbonara sub. A specific type of sandwich. Expression. Leonard tries to provide Sheldon with an excuse for not coming to the date, trying to cover for his earlier deception about who would be there. Sheldon. Why would I join you? Expression. Sheldon, oblivious, asks a logical question, showing he doesn't understand the social implication of helping Leonard out. Sheldon. Oh, no, well now. There's always the possibility that alcohol and poor judgment on her part might lead to a nice romantic evening. Expression. Sheldon offers a brutally cynical and realistic, from his perspective, assessment of how a date with Leonard could succeed, through the woman's alcohol consumption and poor judgment. This highlights his low opinion of Leonard's romantic chances and his lack of conventional romanticism. Sheldon. Of course, there's the other possibility that this date kicks off a rather unpleasant 6 months of the two of you passing awkwardly in the hall until one of you breaks down and moves to another zip code. Vocabulary. Kicks off. Informal, starts or initiates. Passing awkwardly. Interacting in a strained or uncomfortable way. Breaks down. Collapses emotionally or physically. Moves to another zip code. Informal, moves to another location, city. Expression. Sheldon provides a second, equally bleak, and highly detailed prediction of the negative outcome of the date, complete with specific social consequences, awkward hall encounters, and extreme solutions, moving away. Leonard. You could have stopped it, it could go well. Expression. Leonard's frustrated plea for Sheldon to stop his pessimistic analysis and stick to the single positive, however cynical, possibility. Sheldon. If I could have, I would have. Expression. Sheldon's response, a common informal contraction of, if I could have, I would have, implies that he is incapable of suppressing his honest, and often negative, analyses. Leonard. I mean, I'm a perfectly nice guy. There's no reason we couldn't go to the restaurant and have a lovely dinner. Maybe take a walk afterwards, talk about things we have in common. You love pottery? I love pottery. You know, there's a pause, we both know what's happening, I lean in, we kiss, it's a little Tentative at first, but then I realize she's kissing me back, and she's biting my lower lip. You know, she wants me. This thing is going the distance. We're going to have sex. Oh God. Oh, my God. Vocabulary. Tentative. Of a kiss, uncertain, hesitant. Going the distance. Idiomatic. Continuing successfully to the end, in a relationship, implies it will last or lead to intimacy. Expression. Leonard, having a panic attack, spirals into an overly detailed, idealized, and increasingly sexualized fantasy of how the date will go, revealing his desperate desire for intimacy. His vivid imagining leads to an actual panic attack. Sheldon, is the sex starting now? Expression. Sheldon's literal and naive question, completely missing the emotional distress Leonard is experiencing and only focusing on the explicit content of his fantasy. Leonard, if I could calm down I wouldn't be having a panic attack, that's why they call it a panic attack. Expression. Leonard's logical, and somewhat exasperated, response to Sheldon's unhelpful advice, highlighting the nature of a panic attack. Sheldon, now try to increase your alpha wave activity. Vocabulary. Alpha wave activity. Neuroscience, brainwaves in the 8 to 12 Hz range, typically associated with a relaxed, awake state. Expression. Sheldon, attempting to help, suggests a highly technical, biofeedback technique, illustrating his scientific approach to even emotional distress. Sheldon, it's a biofeedback technique, it's relaxation through brainwave manipulation. I read a paper about it in the Journal of American Neuroscience. It was a little sparsely sourced, but I think the basic science is valid. I probably have it here somewhere. Vocabulary. Biofeedback. Physiology, a technique used to learn to control one's body's functions, such as heart rate, muscle tension, or brainwaves. Brainwave manipulation. Deliberate alteration of brain activity. Journal of American Neuroscience, a scientific publication, likely fictionalized, sparsely sourced, having few or limited sources of information. Valid. Logically or factually sound. Expression. Sheldon provides a detailed, academic explanation of his proposed therapy, complete with scientific journal references and caveats. Sparsely sourced, showcasing his intellectual rigor even in an emergency. Leonard. Not the kind of illness that will make her want to come over and take care of me, but nothing so critical that she'll feel uncomfortable going out with me in the future if I want to try this again. Expression. Leonard gives Sheldon extremely specific and contradictory instructions for the fake illness, trying to maintain some romantic possibility while avoiding immediate social contact. Sheldon. Got it. So I'm assuming nothing venereal. I'll just tell her that you had a routine colonoscopy and haven't quite bounced back. Vocabulary. Venereal. Archaic, medical, relating to sexually transmitted diseases. Routine colonoscopy. Medical, a standard medical procedure to examine the colon. Bounced back. Idiomatic, recovered. Expression. Sheldon's blunt and inappropriate interpretation of Leonard's instructions. He immediately jumps to nothing venereal, and then suggests an embarrassing and graphic medical procedure, colonoscopy, as the excuse, completely missing the social nuance. This is a classic Sheldon misinterpretation for comedic effect. Scene. A restaurant. Leonard. We both have people in our lives who want to nip intestinal polyps in the bud. Idiom. Nip something in the bud. Idiomatic. To stop something at an early stage before it can develop into a larger problem. Vocabulary. Intestinal polyps. Medical. Small growths on the lining of the intestine, some of which can be precancerous. Expression. Leonard, trying to find common ground with Penny about their shared experience of colonoscopies, uses a precise medical term and an idiom to describe proactive healthcare, highlighting his intellectual approach to awkward conversations. Leonard. Well, with the exception of string theory, not much has happened since the 1930s, and you can't prove string theory. At best you can say, hey, look, my idea has an internal logical consistency. Cultural, historical reference. String theory. Physics, a theoretical framework that postulates that the fundamental constituents of the universe are one-dimensional, strings, rather than point-like particles. It's a complex, unproven, but highly influential area of modern physics. 1930s, a period of significant developments in quantum mechanics and particle physics. Expression. Leonard delivers a surprisingly cynical, for him, and somewhat condescending summary of modern physics, indicating his frustration with the lack of definitive breakthroughs in his field. He explains the limitation of string theory in accessible, if slightly simplified, terms. Penny. We do have a chocolate key lime. That's moving pretty well. Expression. Moving pretty well, informal, selling successfully, popular. Penny speaks in terms of commercial success for her mundane job. Leonard. Don't get me started on rebound sex. Idiom. Don't get me started on. Idiomatic, an expression used to indicate that one has strong opinions or experiences about a topic and would speak at length if prompted. Vocabulary. Rebound sex. Sexual activity engaged in shortly after the end of a relationship, often as a way to cope with the breakup or to feel desired. Expression. Leonard unexpectedly claims expertise or strong feelings about rebound sex, attempting to relate to Penny, but it comes across as awkward and surprising. Leonard. I'm not sure that I do. Is that 136-hour experience, or is it 36 hours spread out over, say, one glorious summer? Expression. Leonard's extremely awkward and overly specific clarification. Question about the 36 meaningless hours of sex, again highlighting his intellectualization of a personal topic and his desperate attempt to understand it. Penny. Well, chafing, right? Vocabulary. Chafing. Irritation caused by rubbing. Penny is referring to physical irritation from sex. Expression. Penny misunderstands Leonard's question, interpreting not feel good as physical discomfort, prompting Leonard to clarify its emotional. Leonard. Actually, it's centripetal force, which is an inward force generated by the glass acting on the olive. Vocabulary. Centrifugal force. Physics, an apparent force that acts outward on a body moving around a center, but is a consequence of inertia rather than a true force. Often confused with centripetal force. Centripetal force. Physics, a force that acts on a body moving in a circular path and is directed toward the center around which the body is moving. Expression. Leonard, unable to resist correcting Penny's scientific terminology, provides a precise explanation of the correct physics principle, even while trying to impress her. This is a classic, nerd, move, valuing accuracy over social grace. Leonard. Now, if you were riding on the olive, you'd be in a non-inertial reference frame, and would, he bangs his head on the underside of the table. Vocabulary. Non-inertial reference frame. Physics, a frame of reference that is undergoing acceleration, meaning Newton's first law of motion, inertia, does not hold true without the inclusion of fictitious forces. Expression. Leonard continues his detailed physics explanation, moving into more complex concepts, but is comically interrupted by a physical injury, again highlighting the contrast between his intellectual prowess and physical clumsiness. Scene. The stairwell of the apartment building. Leonard. Yes, but I get car sick too, so? Expression. Leonard offers a weak, almost pathetic, excuse for his vomiting, trying to downplay the severity of his head injury. Leonard. The poor guy on the bike. Expression. Leonard humorously expresses sympathy for the unfortunate bystander who was vomited on, a typical self-deprecating comment. Leonard. Capital D bold face, underline, like dated. Vocabulary. Capital D bold face, underline, refers to text formatting, like in a word processor or typography, emphasizing the importance or intensity of a word. Expression. Leonard emphatically declares that a proper date, a dated experience, would be unmistakable and highly significant, contrasting it with their casual, disastrous outing. He uses formatting terms to convey his meaning, a very nerdy way to express intensity. Leonard. I think I might have a little concussion, I'm going to go lay down for a while, good night. Vocabulary. Concussion. Medical, a brain injury caused by a blow to the head, often resulting in temporary loss of brain function. Expression. Leonard finally admits to a possible concussion, which explains his bizarre behavior and exaggerated statements, providing a logical, and humorous, justification for his social ineptitude throughout the evening.